going. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm Ellen Love, I'm the community programmer here at Watts Gallery. We're joined by Lily Ash-Sakula, who is the lead artist behind this animation, which we will tell you all about. And thank you for your interest in this. I think I will start with just a little bit of housekeeping, if that's all right. Across this talk, if you have any ideas pop into your head, you're welcome to send them to us in the chat. And a wee bit later on, we can share those questions with Lily. Also, if you've got any technical issues, in the email that you received earlier, there's a link to my colleague Karis, who can help you through any problems. I'll also mention that we are recording tonight's talk, so if you want to revisit this, you can. A few days yesterday, Lily and I spoke with some of the participants, sharing their reflections about this process, and the recording will be on YouTube with their reflections edited in as well. But I will get going with a little bit of background for you all before we talk specifically about this project. So I suppose this term co-production is something that we are using more and more now, but it's interesting to think about what that means for Watts Gallery. One of our artist founders, Mary Watts, was not an artist who worked alone. She invited the locals into her studio every Thursday night to make with the clay dug from the fields around the gallery. And this got bigger and bigger, and they made the Watts Chapel, which is covered with beautiful designs made by the villagers, and then also the more ambitious Compton Potters Art Guild. And so it was an artist working with the locals, and I hope that that's what we continue to do today. I work on the community learning programme here, and we work in partnership with local charities, organisations and prisons and schools. It's a part of a much bigger learning programme here. And I suppose we've got lots of artists working in different modes of co-production across our programme, with ceramicists working with groups or textile artists, and here Lily with this animation. And like everybody, we had to completely adapt and twist to find new ways of working last year when the pandemic hit. And this idea of co-production works really nicely, and I'm sure that Lily will touch on how it's worked over this time. The animation that we're talking about tonight has come from the depths of lockdown, and I'm really glad to be able to share it with you all. I will also mention that this animation is inspired by it's another interpretation of our current exhibition, the Art and Action Change in Victorian Britain exhibition, which is co-created by an external curator, Chloe Ward. And the exhibition is full of Victorian art about change, almost activist art made wanting to make a difference. And George Watts, the other of our founders, was part of this movement. Some of his paintings are in the exhibition, social realist paintings, and you'll see those in our animation. But I suppose I will welcome Lily. Hello, welcome Lily. And I wonder, maybe I could start by asking you a little bit about how did you respond to the exhibition?
Hi, thanks Ellen. Hi everyone, my name's Lily Ash-Sakula and I'm an artist and animator. And yeah, I think when I first saw this exhibition, well, to be honest, I've never seen the exhibition because the whole time that I've been on this residency, the gallery has been closed. It literally opened yesterday. So it's been very much an exhibition that I've kind of seen through my laptop. But I was immediately really kind of struck by it because it's about this time about 150 years ago, which speaks really intimately to our present moment, that has all of these very similar issues that are being thought about, like child poverty, homelessness, disease. And it speaks so intimately to us now, because not only do we have these parallel moments, but so much of the huge issues that we're facing today, like the climate catastrophe, like the rise of fascism, like the huge wealth inequality gap, kind of find their root in the fires of the Industrial Revolution and the kind of brutal colonization and slavery that was a part of that. So I think it's really interesting now to kind of come back to that time and think, where did this all start? So yeah, I came to the exhibition with kind of all of these ideas, but as well as kind of thinking about the parallels, I also wanted, when I was working with people, to think kind of to look forward, which was really important to me to think, yes, we're in this place. At the time, we were in kind of it was like the depths of January. It was very dark. We were in the midst of a lockdown and a pandemic, and generally the world was looking pretty grim. To think, what's going to come next, and how can we move towards this kind of better, brighter future if we can't first imagine it? So all of the workshops that I ran with the groups were kind of aimed at kind of drawing, imagining, talking about these new worlds and the characters that might live there, the people that might live there, and thinking about, how art can make change by imagining better futures. Yeah.
Thank you, Lily. I suppose, Moya, my next question is, do you want to just tell us about how you started? What was this process of co-producing with the community participants? And perhaps I've not made that clear enough. Yeah, this is an animation by Lily and the Art for All community participants. But yeah, Lily, go ahead.
Yeah, so I ran these workshops in February with various community groups. I ran about 12 workshops with people with learning disabilities, with a women's centre, with teenagers, with families, with kind of a wide range of different ages and backgrounds and abilities. And we talked about all of this stuff that I was just talking about just now, and we did lots of drawing and talking, and we recorded all of these workshops. And at the end of that, I had about 12 hours of talking recorded, and I had a lot of drawings. I also got lots of drawings. We sent resources into prison. So I designed this workbook that was kind of talked about the exhibition and kind of prompted, drawings from and writing from the people who were incarcerated. And it all kind of came back to me, and I just had this massive pile of material. And then first I edited down the sound. I got these kind of 12 hours of talking into a 5-minute film, which you're about to watch. So a lot got missed out, but I think hopefully I got the kind of core of what people were talking about. And then I kind of matched, the words that people were saying with the drawings that we'd got. And I got a sound designer and music producer to design a soundtrack, which kind of ties the words and the images together. And that's Talha, who you will hear shortly. Yeah, and then I made the animation. Does that explain it?
Simple, all simple, yeah. Perhaps now is a good time for us to actually share the animation with everybody, and then I've got a few questions afterwards, if that's okay.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions while they're watching, please do pop them in the chat. I'd love to hear them. Let me share.
it is quite parallel to my life of some of this poverty stuff, depression and everything.
Yeah, life's still tough like that, isn't it?
These paintings may raise awareness, but is awareness enough?
You don't want pity.
You want empathy.
But how many people would give you the empathy and not pity?
You see it nowadays, don't you? We can walk past a homeless person, sort of not even notice them with their sleeping
Bloody
bag.
looked at me when I was homeless.
But I hope George sorts her out for painting her.
If you've been poor, you can understand it, and therefore you want to change it, not just for yourself, but so that no one else ever has to go through it. The people who got the power to actually do something, they just tinker around the edges.
I love that word, tinker.
So I have some mental health issues, and we have to wait until we are killing ourselves before we get support. You have to be not at the bottom, you have to be below that. You have to be so far down. The system's broken. And no one believes you. No one believes you. We've got a campaign for every little thing over and over and over again. But it's just constant. You have to constantly be on it. And
Where's the justice?
Yes, this is terrible, but what can we do to kind of make it better? If we choose to have children or the next generation, what we can do to make it better for them so they won't have that disappointment or have to go through that and fight for that again.
It's an island where there's lots of trees, there's lots of animals.
I think bees are very important, so I've done a little bee city.
If everyone could do art, then if they needed money, then they could sell their art, and especially if they're a good artist, then people would buy their things and they wouldn't be poor anymore.
Fast food restaurant run by robots.
Flying cars, because it can fly, and 2 is because it would be much safer for dogs and cats.
I would ban cars. I'd have no car parks. I'd have no cars. I'd go no public transport.
Cleaning robots that I don't have to clean.
Bowling discos.
Like accessible entrances. If I'm in my wheelchair, I need someone with me to kind of help. So I'd like to be able to do that on my own.
Youth centres, like a safe place where young people can go, safe places that people with mental health can go.
Somebody somewhere will just listen to what you have to say, and they don't make you feel bad for it. Don't fix me. I don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. I am who I am. We're not broken. We just need a little bit of support.
Friendly neighbourhoods and people who are accepting of LGBT as well.
A food court for all, so everyone could get fed.
Knock down all of our horrible houses and flats around here, and I would rebuild them. They would be nice. They would be nice to live in, communal gardens, rather than our little tiny individual postage box stamps. And we just have to hope we get on with the neighbour.
Clean environment and no poverty.
When I feel sad and angry, I like doing drawing. That makes me feel better.
To draw something, it just makes it go away in some ways.
I get really stressed, so what I do is I make stuff.
If you have art that brings the community together, I think that's where you can see change.
I think art's a form of expression, isn't it? I don't know if it can change the future, but I think it makes people think and look.
It's opened my eyes and changed me.
Oh well, gotta have a laugh, haven't we?
Innit? Otherwise I'm going to start falling.
Well, you know, we are nearly free, aren't we?
Thank you, Lily. Thanks for sharing that. Great. So I wonder, maybe I have a question for you, Lily. What have you learned through this process of co-production about your own practice as an artist?
Well, lots of things. I think it's been really interesting working with so many different people with lots of kind of very different opinions, and having to kind of, you know, bring all of those together into something that makes sense, or sort of makes sense, has been like a really steep learning curve for me. But it's been definitely, I've got better at that, and yeah, and just kind of kind of working from kind of older work as well has been really interesting for me. I haven't really worked with Victorian art before, so I think I've learned a lot from doing that, and from kind of talking with people about the paintings and seeing what comes out of them.
Is this your first time working in a mode of co-production?
No, I've done a lot of co-production before. I worked with the House of Illustration before. I did a residency with them last year, working in a school actually, and I've worked with several youth groups, and with older people at the theatre near where I live, the Albany in Deptford. So yeah, it's definitely it's a mode that I'm familiar with, but I've never done it over Zoom before, so that has been a big challenge and interesting, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. And then another question, I mean, I suppose you're kind of touching on it here. What are the challenges that you faced while working during this project?
Well, yeah, so like I said, the Zoom was kind of, at the beginning, I thought that was going to be a real challenge, but I think we really made the best of it. You know, it was kind of, I guess we got different groups of people than we would have got if we'd been in person, but maybe there were some people who wouldn't have left their houses who are really up for coming to a Zoom. So that was kind of interesting to get a different kind of group of people. And I think one of the most challenging things about working on Zoom was getting the work back, for sure. Was like, we made all this work, I could see it on the Zoom, and then I was like, how does it come to me? So we had to kind of chivvy quite a lot to do that. And also designing the resource books for the people in prison was difficult as well, because there was a lot of kind of language barriers, and was trying to kind of explain all these ideas like with as few words as possible. But it was amazing, the response that I got back. So I was really, really pleased about that.
I mean, I've actually just got a question here, which perhaps touches on this a little bit. So there's a magic to seeing still artwork animated. In the lockdown situation, were you able to teach participants to animate as part of the project?
No, we didn't do any animation as part of the project. The workshops were very much chatting and drawing. Although we did talk about kind of storytelling and kind of character design and those parts of animation, but not the actual technical act of animating, because that just takes way longer than you have in a workshop, basically.
Yeah, the workshop seemed quite short, didn't they? To have sometimes quite profound conversations about the artwork and then also the making too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And then I have a question here. What tips do you have for artists working with community groups to co-produce?
Well, I think the most important thing that you can do as an artist working with community groups is to make sure that you are not tokenizing or exploiting their experiences, and also to protect them from institutions that might be trying to do that. Because I think that can often be a thing that happens when people feel like, you know, you're coming along, you're taking all of their ideas and their experiences, and then you're making something and putting your name on it. And so that can feel really like not a fair exchange. So I think it's really important that as an artist, you're working genuinely to co-produce and genuinely to kind of create an atmosphere where you're working together. And I think that's mostly done just by like showing real respect for people's ideas and work, and treating it with that respect, not treating it like it's just, you know, that it's just your material, like it belongs to the people who have made it.
Yeah.
And kind of, I also thought, especially in this particular co-production, it was really important to create a safe space for people to explore these experiences. People were talking about things, you heard a bit about it in the film, but like things that were really difficult and experiences they had were really like painful and challenging. And you don't want to just be taking that lightly. Like I felt so privileged to be allowed into these spaces and to be allowed to kind of talk to people about those experiences. So I think if you're working with communities, you need to be really respectful of that, of their space that they're inviting you into, and make sure that you're not tokenizing or exploiting that.
Yeah. I have lots of questions coming in, so I'll move on to them if that's all right, Lily. So one of them is talking about how involved were the participants in the editing process? And I guess maybe we can talk a little bit about how we planned the workshops, so almost that narrative became part of it.
Yeah, so from the very first workshop, the participants knew that what we were going to do is we were going to spend some time on the paintings and thinking about kind of parallels, and then spend some time thinking about the future. So that kind of narrative structure of the film was very much established from the beginning. But in terms of kind of, and so I guess, yeah, we had that structure, and then like where the voices were exactly and where the images were exactly, that was mostly just me, just because we're all so remote. But we did then send it back to participants to kind of check it past them and check they were happy with their voices being used in certain ways. And I got some feedback from them. So there was a little bit in the edit, but mostly they were involved in kind of the building materials and the narrative stage of the process.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a nice question. What did the participants think of the co-production process and the final results? And I think you know about that, Lily, so do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, well, we showed them, as Ellen said, we showed them the film yesterday, and we got to talk to a couple of them afterwards. And I think they really appreciated it. They really felt like, I mean, you know, they were like, oh God, I don't want to hear my voice, it's awful. But they were really happy with the result, and they felt, you know, they were saying they felt quite moved by it, which I think quite a few people have said. And I also felt like making it, I was like, it's really kind of moving to hear these words and these pictures together. So yeah, I think they really enjoyed it. They were saying they wished that we hadn't had to do it on Zoom. Was the main bit of feedback I think we got, but sadly, pandemic wasn't under our control at that moment.
Yeah. And they were all surprised, I think, by the outcome as well. I think they were like, oh my gosh, that's my drawing moving. It was a shock, I think, as well, to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I'm not sure they trusted me.
And then a nice question about what did you find most inspiring about the futures everybody imagined?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know, I actually found what I found really inspiring about having these conversations was I kind of expected these like really big, like, oh, you know, we've got to stop climate change and we've got to like end poverty, and all of, obviously those things are really important, but actually the kind of really moving things I found were the things that were like, I just want to have an accessible entrance so I can like get into my local cafe by myself without help, or I just want someone to talk to about my mental health. And they just seem to me like such simple things that we could definitely do. And that's why I found them so inspiring, was I was like, there is nothing to stop us making these things happen. We can absolutely do that. That is a reachable future, and we should be doing it already. And I think that's like, I think it was really inspiring that we have such almost like a practical blueprint to go from with this film of things we can do. So yeah, I was really inspired by that.
I will also throw in there that I really like the humour in their imagined futures too.
Yes, yeah, the bowling disco and the robot fast food sounds pretty great.
Yeah, what a dream. And then another question. Were you surprised by how well participants responded to the Victorian art?
Well, I'm not sure if you vetted all my participants, but they did all seem to be quite into Victorian art when I got there. So obviously they've worked with Watts before, and they know a bit about the gallery and a bit about the painting. So it was a very well laid ground for me. They were all like, oh yeah, Watts, we know Watts, yeah, we know social realism. We've kind of got that. I
think also how we went about it was talking about the idea of reading paintings, and that I think sometimes with the groups we work with, there's a sense of their responses not being enough, that you need to have a scholarly background or whatever, and that's not the case. That I think these sorts of workshops are saying that however you respond to this painting is right, and we're interested in it.
I think we really focused on thinking about the subjects of the painting, and I think a lot of the people that we were talking to had like more experience to help them understand those subjects than like a lot of kind of academics and scholars would. So I feel like they were actually really well equipped to be like, oh yeah, I know what it's like to be homeless and have people walk past you and not notice you. Like, I think that was, whether the paintings are Victorian or not, that's very kind of, that's right there.
Yeah, and for some of these workshops, we had like a PowerPoint prepared with lots of paintings from the exhibition, and then we'd get to the end of the workshop and we'd spent a whole hour talking about maybe 1 or 2 paintings. That's happened. So oddly, yeah, that's not a problem. Everybody definitely does engage with these works. Yeah, I think that I'm going to round on to Lily, this is a lovely question. Which artists have influenced your work?
Good question. Well, I'm kind of very influenced by comics, and a lot of my work comes from, a lot of my kind of animation work comes from that. I'm really influenced by Alison Bechdel, who's one of my favorite comic artists, and Lynda Barry. And I find like, yeah, a lot of the kind of humor, especially of my work, comes from those comics dealing with really, really serious issues, but kind of in this light touch way that that I find just so appealing. And it doesn't take away from any of the like hardness of it.
Yeah, and we shared those.
I tried to do.
Yeah.
Sorry?
And I think those were part of some of the workshops too, weren't they?
Yeah, we did look at comics.
Yeah.
Always try to squeeze those in.
So I'm going to end on a selfish note, because there's a question for me and I think it wraps up quite nicely, which is, what did you and the curatorial team see in Lily's work that made you appoint them as the resident artist for this project? And well, for the interview process, we had 2 participants on the panel, and we met with lots of fantastic artists, but Lily's work was very clearly Lily was the artist they clearly wanted to have on this project to work with. So can't really fight against that, but there was no need to fight. It was really clear from Lily's previous work that their work is really good at putting a participant's voice above them. And I suppose tonight we are talking about Lily as an artist, but Lily's work is very good at having their voice a little lower than the participants. And I loved seeing some of their previous video films and animations that had been put together, and I hope you all agree that that is the case here, that it is the participants' voices. Lily's really good at sewing different snippets of life together to make a cohesive story, and I thought that was really beautiful and inclusive. and thoughtful as well. So I think that that is a really nice place to end tonight. Thank you, Lily, so much for your hours and hours going through our voices and finding all the gems within it. Everybody, you'll receive this talk with, as I said, the participants' voices edited in the next week or so, and the animation can be viewed on our website, not yet, but it will, and social media and the Smartify app, and next week in the Artist in Residence studio at Watts Gallery. If you haven't come to see the Art and Action exhibition, do. It's on till Sunday the 23rd, so this Sunday, there's a little bit of time. If you haven't seen it, we've got the digital tour on our website, which hopefully will give you an insight. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope you like the film. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Was fun. I enjoyed going and participating. It was, especially with this horrible sort of, you know, when we were all stuck indoors, and it was so nice to have something else to think about and talk about, and it was good. Yeah, so that's really all I would say, is just to go in, listen, do what you're told, but you'll get something out of it at the end of it. You know, it's nerve-wracking when Lily was saying to us, just don't look at the paper, look at the screen. Oh God, I hated you for that. But right. look what we achieved as a result collectively. It was amazing. So, you know, and it was fun. It was really interesting to see how you go through and to looking at all the artists' different work. I definitely think we made the right choice. Lily was definitely suited to this project and to us as a group.
Yeah, as soon as you know, I was an advocate for Lee from the beginning, and as soon as we did our interview, I said right from the beginning, he definitely is the person, because it's just like her persona and what she stood for that I knew that people would be able to relate, and that I think is more important than anything else, really. I think that's how I felt, that it was more important that that person was relatable.
Well, I did have a little cry when I was watching it, just a little tear, because it was the contrast between the beginning and the end.
Wasn't it? Definitely. I don't, like you said, I don't think I expected it to be that emotive. And that shows the way that Lily understood as well. They understood what people were saying and their interpretations and things, which is definitely showed in the film.
Definitely.
What different people relate to, and I think, like you say, with having a film, an animation, or you know, different people's interpretation of something, then it definitely makes a big difference. Yeah. It's about relating to everybody, isn't it, and getting everybody involved. And I definitely think that it's definitely the way forward.
It would have been really nice to have the face-to-face, because I would have really loved to have done this workshop face-to-face again, knowing what I do now and what the result was. What could we have done if we had done it in a slightly different way? There was one girl who absolutely doesn't like art, to the point where she refuses to participate in any other art thing, but she participated in that, and she had a good time. She said she didn't feel stupid. You don't make us feel stupid. You listen to what we have to say, and it's really, and then you help us. It's wonderful.
A lot of places that we have to go to are places that people judge you, and that's the worst thing about it. Whereas that's the whole thing about Watts Gallery is, it's just a free space to be whoever you want to be, and it doesn't matter who you are, and that has a big impact on people's self-esteem as well, and you know, wanting to come back and to participate.
I mean, that's really nice of you to say. Do you think that the nature of you guys working with an artist helps that a little bit? Do you think that maybe this naturally, as a way of working, so you guys are workers with the artist, helps a little bit into creating that sort of environment?
Definitely, and I think like most of us attend a lot of appointments where everything revolves around the same thing, whereas this doesn't. This revolves around an interest or something that we want to learn about, and so that gives you, like I said, a sense of empowerment, I think is the word, probably, that you're taking control of something, you're doing something that you want to do for yourself and not just because somebody else has told you to do it, you know.
And it's nice as well. I like that we achieve something at the end of it, and it's not the same as it's individual to me.
It's something that we can take control of ourselves, and it gives you kind of a bit of a sense of purpose, and that for me is a massive thing, and that is the biggest thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you, I attended these workshops. I've been to Watts Gallery, and my family think I'm happier at the end of the day when they come home and they see, and they're like, "Oh, Mum's been to Watts Gallery today. She's calm. You know, she's having a good day today."
It's nice not talking about your own personal story. It's about going to somewhere and just being anonymous and just being able to talk generally about general things that are just what normal people talk about, rather than all the things and awful things that have happened to us. And that's how I feel when I come to somewhere like the gallery or do whatever. It's about, you can just be you